While I was in college, my dad kept saying like, you need to buy something, you need to buy something. I was like, Dad, I scoop popcorn for a living. I can't buy anything. He was like, no, they're just going to put a mirror under your nose. You can fog it. They'll give you a loan. We claimed I was a manager at the movie theater where I scooped popcorn, and they gave me a $500,000 loan. Like, it was stupid.
Wow.
I think you invest in yourself and you understand the space. You're kind of looking for where you get hits, and it's like, oh, you get a hit. And maybe it's like, you want to really go after this Airbnb game really hard. And
right.
Like, you're passionate about that. Like, that's where you should go. There is nobody who knows residential real estate in San Diego County better than I do. I can sit down in a room like this with a seller, and the seller could say like, yeah, we're thinking about listing the home for $1 million. I do not have to go put that home on the market publicly. If I sit down and somebody says, I want to sell the home for $1 million, I could buy the home right there in the living room privately, and it's perfectly legal. In any other industry, that would probably be considered insider trading. But like, I get to do that every day legally.
Welcome, Kyle Whissel, to the CashFlow Quest. We believe, this is my new punchline, we believe all roads end to cash flow.
Did you GPT to come up with this? Or?
Can you move your mic a little bit closer to you? Sorry.
Yeah. Did you GPT that slogan?
No, that's just me.
Oh, wow.
Because I'm like, in the end, all these roads lead to, you need a lot of cash flow in this whole environment. And when you get old enough, you're like, dude, I'm done grinding.
Yeah.
So that's where,
yeah, and everybody wants some cash flow to have some fun with their toys or travel or.
It doesn't hurt.
Market more.
Definitely doesn't hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, welcome. So
yeah, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure.
The three main topics, which we'll kind of wander through, I'm sure, is, did you go over the little thing we sent?
I looked at it briefly.
No worries. So
I have prepared responses. Would you like those now?
we were trying to make sure we had a professional front on it, So
you probably should give them a proper intro too.
We'll go.
Well, you're running with it. Go for it.
Well, I'm doing the 1, 2, 3 now.
Okay.
So first is, what did I'd love to hear your origin story. So what you built from the beginning. You did some cool like restaurant week thing or something. I'm slaughtering that, but that's an interesting kind of start into being a realtor. I think the EXP origin story.
Yeah.
I like all of a sudden it was like everywhere. So I'd just be curious to know where the heck that came from.
For sure.
And then now you're moving into like, okay, knowing what you know today, it seems like you're changing gears, kind of looking at things a little differently. And then, so we'd like to hear the story of what, if you were to tell like a starting realtor, each time we have a guest, we want to shine the light on that profession of like how to get to where you've gotten as a realtor, just because that's cool to hear from a listing perspective. But then now, number 3 is how do you view cash flow and passive income, and are you shifting gears? Do you wish you got into it sooner? Kind of now, how do you view cash flow? So it's 1, 2, 3. We'll keep it nice and simple.
Cool. So start with story.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm born and raised in San Diego. My whole family is from Buffalo, New York. Luckily, they moved to San Diego before I was born. So I never had to live in Buffalo, but I love Buffalo, diehard Bills fan. Growing up my whole life, though, my dad was in commercial real estate. And I hated real estate because my dad oftentimes would have real estate take priority over me. So whether it was like, not being there for my games or showing up late for my games or being on the phone when we're together, like all those things are what I associated with real estate. So never thought I would be in real estate ever.
What did
as
he
a kid? He did multifamily apartment building sales. So he was one of the top multifamily brokers in San Diego for a long time.
Okay.
And so I watched that my whole life and I just hated it. I just didn't want that, right? Because it was all negative that I associated with it. While I was in college, I went to UCSD, University of California, San Diego. And while I was in college, my dad kept saying like, you need to buy something. You need to buy something. I was like, Dad, I scoop popcorn for a living. I can't buy anything. He was like, no, they're just going to put a mirror under your nose. You can fog it. They'll give you a loan. Because that was the world in the early 2000s. Like
we had a mortgage broker in here yesterday and we were talking through that era and he said that.
It was ridiculous. So we claimed I was a manager at the movie theater where I scooped popcorn. And they gave me a $500,000 loan. Like, it was stupid.
Wow.
It was completely stupid. But then I sold that property 3 months later and my net was $17,000. And at the same time, I had just gotten a nickel an hour raise from the movie theater. So I'm like, nickel an hour raise, $17,000 check. And I was like, fuck, all right, Dad, let's talk about this real estate thing.
Yeah.
So like never thought I would get into it, but like you make that kind of money in college, like, all right, we got to talk. So I jumped in with him. I worked with him on the commercial side for about 5 or 6 years, mostly selling apartment buildings to condo converters. That was like an era in San Diego where you would buy an apartment building, kick everybody out, renovate the units, and then sell them off individually as condos. People made absurd amounts of money. I wish I knew then what I know now, which will tie into what I am doing now. So I worked with him on the commercial side for about 5 or 6 years. That market dried up when they stopped the condo conversions. And then at that time was when all the foreclosure stuff was happening. And so I was looking around and I remember I had gotten a mailer from Greg Newman downtown, and it was like, we sell a house a day. We sold 365 houses last year. I was like, damn, that's a lot of houses. I was like, there's no way you could do that though. Like, that's not possible. But then I started looking and I realized like, oh, well, he's got like 500 short sale listings. This girl's got 500, foreclosure listings. I was like, this commercial thing's been cool, but getting a check every like 2 or 3 months when you're in your early 20s is not good. And I was like, I'd rather go over to Resi where I can get checks more consistently. So I jumped ship. I left my dad, started my own brokerage. And that was in 2008. So
and you started your own brokerage. That's pretty early, right?
Like I never worked for a brokerage. I was with my dad. So technically it was with his brokerage, but I was like, when I was with him, like he ran the show, he was the broker. Now I run the show, so I'm going to be the broker. Like that was just my mindset.
I like it.
And I never joined a brokerage because everywhere I looked, it was like, I have to pay all this money and I really don't get any value. So it's like, why am I going to pay these, the big name brokers, Century 21, Remax, Keller? It's like, why am I going to pay these guys all this money? I don't get any value. So I was like, screw it, I'll be the broker.
So when you switched to residential, then you got your broker's license.
And
you got your broker's license and started your own shop.
Yep. Did that. So within 4 years, we became the number one team in San Diego.
Wow.
So from scratch to number one in like 4 years. And then now we've been the number one team in San Diego for 9 of the last 11 years.
So, okay, you start your brokerage. That's seriously amazing.
Yeah.
I have to dive into how... Was EXP involved at that point? That was early.
No, I ran my own brokerage for 12 years and then joined EXP.
What'd you do differently? I'm in Resi, I'm a broker, get your broker's license. That's also a non-standard approach. Like nobody's
I just didn't know any different, right? Because like my dad was the broker. So he never worked for like a big brokerage. So I was like, all right, well, I'm the broker now. Like, again, it just didn't make sense to pay the money. Now we'll get into what I wish I would have known. Like I probably wouldn't have gone that route if I did it all over again. But yeah, it was ballsy to do that. Like that's just not common, right? To be like early 20s, start your own brokerage and having no experience in residential either. Like it was not normal.
And hire real estate agents to be underneath you.
Yeah.
How many out the gate did you hire?
So I screwed it up royally. In the beginning, I just had me and an assistant. I've always had an assistant since day one. Like I don't understand working without an assistant. So in the beginning, once a week, I would take all the leads that came in and I would export them and then send them over to my friend who owned a brokerage. And I was like, here, give these to your agents. And if you guys close anything, let me know, which is crazy because today I'm worried about like seconds on follow-up time where that was like weekly export to him. Like it was so stupid. So we never closed anything. Then I was like, all right, this doesn't work. I have a couple friends who kept bugging me like, I'll take your leads. So I brought them into the brokerage and I started giving them the leads, but I gave them no training, no systems, no structure, anything. And so they closed nothing. And then I was sitting around on a Black Friday one year and Dell had computers on sale for like $200. And I was like, I'm sick of playing small. Like I want to go big. I was in coaching and I had all these big visions and I just bought 10 computers. And at that time I had a 10 by 10 office. So now I had 10 computers and a 10 by 10 office. I was like, I need a bigger office. So then I went and I leased up like a 2,000 square foot office. And I was like, okay, I have computers and I have office space. I need agents. And then I just started hiring. Basically, I went with the same theory of how you got a loan. Just put a mirror under somebody's nose. If they fogged it, they were hired, which was the biggest mistake ever.
Wow.
So my first year that I really started to grow this thing, which was 2010, I lost at least 100,000, which in 2010, 100,000 was a lot of freaking money.
Yeah.
What was your gross?
I don't even know. It was a bad year though.
So 100K hurt.
100K hurt. Yeah. Because it wasn't like I had a bunch of other income streams. Like it was just a lost year, right? Like that sucked. So that was the year that I learned about culture, right?
Yeah.
Understanding like the ideal avatar of who we want to hire and stuff like that. So once we figured out the right avatar, we got rid of the people that didn't fit. kept the people that were the right culture, and then just started hiring the right people moving forward. And then that year we went from selling 82 homes to 242 homes in a year.
Wow.
So
That's awesome.
a big leap year was getting the right people and the right technology in place. So having a really badass CRM on the back end to generate the leads, manage the leads, convert the leads, see them through the whole process. That was like the big leap year for us.
So you hire these people, you said the right fit. We are in manufactured home sales.
Right.
We have hired realtors and different things, but we're now staffing our own sales team in the field, in the properties that really need it, that are heavier in sales volume.
Yeah.
Well, what do you look for? What's the right fit?
The biggest thing is they have to have motivation, because that's the thing you can't teach. Like, I can teach skills.
Yeah.
I can't teach motivation. So if they're not internally motivated, they're just like, oh, I watched HGTV and I think it would be fun. Like, get the fuck out. Like, it's just not going to work. Like, you got to really want it.
Totally.
So I would say that they have an internal motivation, and they can just have a natural conversation. Because the people that can't have a conversation rarely do well. Maybe if they focus on investment property, there might be an opportunity there.
More of an analyst.
I need somebody who can just walk into a room and just talk to people.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're going to be going to networking events. You're going to host open houses. You're going to be at all these things. Like, if you can't just have natural conversation with people, it's going to be really hard to be a residential real estate agent.
Do you just view that on the surface, or do you do like a disc assessment or something that like
the disc is cool and all, but people are going to test what they think you want.
Yeah.
So somebody could do a disc, but I could talk to them for 30 seconds and I can tell you what somebody's disc profile is, their real disc profile. Right. So it's like half the time they do the disc profile and then they come in and within 30 seconds, I'm just like, you just cheated the system. Like, you thought that I would want this, but you're not this, you're that. And there's not necessarily like, you have to be this disc profile to be successful, because there's different profiles that can.
Totally.
But there's a profile, somebody who's 100 on the C on a disc profile rarely is successful in real estate, because they're just over analyzing everything. They don't think, they're just getting ready to get ready all the time. They want all the answers. So you need somebody who's got more D. If you have somebody who's a high C but also a D, they can do it, but it's not natural for them.
I like that you're familiar with it though.
Yeah.
I
know it inside and out, but I just don't trust. If I send somebody a disc profile and they take it, I don't trust the results.
Our analyst took it thinking I would want him to be more more influential and more out there, outspoken. And then I'm like, we did this whole event we brought our Tony Robbins coach in, and we're doing this event, and he goes over to the eyes and we're all talking. And he goes, I don't think I'm in the right place.
Yeah. Nobody
was like, I think you need to retake that test.
He goes, I think I need to retake it.
Yeah.
But it's to your point. And I'm like, no, it's for you. It's really for you. Yeah. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just, we need salespeople, but we also need analysts and accountants, and they are different.
And we want to make sure they're in the right department, really. It's like, this is a benefit for you. Like, you don't want somebody there that's going to hate their job and not want to go sell homes. Like, that's not good for you or them. So
you're looking for high I, natural.
I is the most, that's almost the non-negotiable, right? If there's anything, but like an IS typically does better with working with buyers. Buyers need to be comforted a little bit more. They need their hand held. They need to feel safe, secure, all of that stuff. So IS tends to do better with buyers, and ID tends to do better with sellers. Yeah. Because a seller is like, now our industry changed a few weeks ago. Yeah. Where you actually have to sell yourself on the buy side now too. Yeah. But traditionally a seller, like, you're selling yourself. So if you go in there and you're not confident and you can't control that conversation, you might not get hired. So typically IDs do better with buyers. ISs do better with sellers. If you're a CI or a CS, good luck. A CD is like the one version of a C that I've seen be successful, because they can actually like crack down and get stuff done. But if they're like a CS, that's really tough. I haven't seen very many successful CS personalities
in a sales position.
Yes.
Right.
So
cool. I'm glad we took that turn, because I didn't realize you knew disc so well.
Oh, heavy. Yeah.
Okay. Do you do Tony Robbins trainings?
I've done Tony Robbins. There's a new one that's out called Working Genius, which adds, that one I like because it talks about how to mesh your whole organization together. How you need, if you're this, you need to surround yourself with these other ones. And so there's more than just four. So Working Genius has been really cool. So you have GENIUS, and there's acronyms for each. I've really liked that. I feel like it's like DISC 2.0.
Got it. Oh, I'll have to check that one out. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So then keep going. So, what'd you do different? So you were talking about building the initial team, but I always got a kick out of like the marketing piece. We were talking about the Cybertruck with your name on it. So what did you do to just get out there and get leads from scratch? Did you do any fun marketing campaigns?
Back then it was all Craigslist. Like Craigslist was like our number one lead provider. So I'm a kind of guy, like I like to be ahead of the curve, but I don't need to be like the first one. So I waited till there was a couple people who told me like, hey, there's this platform called Boomtown. And then another person that I respected told me that. And then a third person told me, I was like, all right, where there's smoke, there's fire. Like 3 people that I know and trust have talked about this thing called Boomtown. And so then I looked at Boomtown, and Boomtown was an all-in-one platform. So it would help you generate leads. It would then take the leads in, put them into a CRM, allow you to nurture the leads, and then run them through the transaction and all that. And the part of Boomtown that helped generate the leads was a Craigslist ad builder. And then you could just build a bot. Back then it was called macros, but you could just literally hit a button and it would just go post Craigslist ads all day long for you, which there's still people who do this. And it would just take all of our listings and just post Craigslist ads all day long, over and over and over again. And we would get a ton of leads from it.
Buyer leads.
Primarily buyer leads. Yeah. But the reality of it is, depending on the market, Zillow says their buyer leads, about 50% of their buyer leads are also sellers. I don't think it's that high in California. It's probably like 25%, but 25% of the buyer leads we generate are also sellers.
Yeah. So a starter home or whatever.
Yeah. Right. They're ready to move up into that next. And now you're getting 2 sales out of 1. So a lot of people like, I need seller leads. I'm like, you're getting them. You're just not asking the right questions to realize those buyer leads you're getting are actually seller leads too. But Craigslist is where it started for us. Like that was our number one lead generator. Now we've tried to like fire it back up a few years ago, and the quality of leads is straight trash. So it doesn't work as good today. So it was an era. Like it worked then. It just doesn't work now.
What CRM do you use? So
we were with Boomtown for a long time. Loved Boomtown. Great people. Loved the founders. Still friends with them. But they were an all-in-one platform. And over time, we just outgrew the all-in-one, and we needed to custom build our platform. So there's a platform called Follow Up Boss, which is kind of like the Salesforce of real estate, where that's the hub, and then you plug everything else into it. So you're not stuck. Like with Boomtown, you're stuck. You're using them for everything. Where Follow Up Boss is the hub, and you're like, I want the best texting platform. Okay, let me plug that into it. I want the best transaction platform, plug that in. So Follow Up Boss is kind of like the gold standard in real estate right now.
Cool. No, it's a tricky thing. We're learning with the development of all these softwares that you have to be really cautious and cognizant of like the all-in-ones, because it's just, there's so many cool little pieces of software now that you really just need a hub and plug in the really great inputs from there. Because we had to build a manufactured home sales platform because they wouldn't let us post direct to the MLS. So we were having to hire realtors to put in our new manufactured homes on the MLS. This is in Arizona. I think it's pretty much standard
it's a train wreck with like mobile homes here in San Diego is a train wreck. Like half of them are listed by realtors and they're on the MLS, and then half of them are listed by dealers. They're not on the MLS. And so we have
the guy that can build that. Weren't you and I talking about that?
I don't think we have.
Okay.
But we run into it where like we get a lead who saw a mobile home on the MLS, and then they're like, but I'm interested in this one too. And it's not on the MLS and it's listed by a dealer, and the dealers don't co-op with us. So they're like, you got to just turn your buyer over. Like, we're not going to work with you. Like, they don't have the same rules because they're not realtors.
Right.
So it's messy. Like when we get mobile home buyers, it's a messy process.
Interesting. So we found a guy that has been working with several of the because all of the big dogs like ELS and Sun, they all sell homes internally too. But they just needed a way to bring in the MLS piece, because that if goes to Zillow.
Put it on the MLS,
and
you're screwing yourself as an owner. Like if you are listing a mobile home and you hire a dealer, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because they're not going to expose it to everybody. In fact, the dealers here in San Diego, they hoard these properties. Like they don't want the full exposure on these things. They want to represent you. They want to represent the buyer. Like I don't think they're doing a fiduciary responsibility. Now, again, they don't have the same fiduciary responsibility I do as a realtor. But if you have a mobile home and you want to get top dollar and you do not put it on the MLS, I think you're screwing yourself.
Well, the systems on the, I'll defend them for a moment in that the systems suck that we've all been using in the manufactured housing side as a dealer, to where we finally were like, Michael, he's always in kind of our R&D stuff, trying to figure out, we're trying to track leads. So like if we're getting these calls from running ads from our website, but we're using a third party listing agency like MH Village. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
Horrible.
Yeah.
It's the best we got. But anyways, it was like, well, MH Village was like our hub. So we were tying everything back to MH Village. Well, now we have no optics on the lead gen, on like our follow-up. It all gets basically just nuked at that source. So this guy, we were following up, we looked at different websites, we're kind of digging, and Michael stumbles upon this web developer who basically models the used car like plugins on your own website. And so we built it out, and now there's a new connector to the MLS, which allows us to list the home on our site in our system. It goes to the MLS and goes out from there onto all the main
and then
websites.
It syndicates to everything.
And to your point though, what I haven't thought about is, okay, if we list it, we can be the listing agent. Our crew can be the listing agent, and we could put a fee on there.
Yeah.
Right.
It's such a weird thought.
Not anymore. Not on the MLS. No more fees on the MLS. But you can tell people that you will cooperate and you'll offer a fee, but you don't put a fee on the MLS. That's gone now.
So in California,
is that
even
country?
That's a real country.
That's
nationwide realtor thing. Okay.
On August 14th, that new rule went into play.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's have
so our industry's changed substantially.
Yes.
Yeah, it just happened. I kind of like it.
The good agents are going to make more money.
Yes.
Yes.
The pros are going to crush it.
Yeah. I mean, our better agents are making about 20% more, because before, whatever was being offered to them, they would just accept.
Yeah.
Which is funny because they didn't have to accept it before. They just psychologically did. But this now forced them to realize, like, you never had to accept what was offered. You could have always negotiated how much you got paid. But now they're forced to negotiate.
Yeah.
So there's been commission compression for a long time. I'm not supposed to talk about percentages, but the percentage had continually been driven down. So it used to be at, X, and it had been driven down to Y.
Mm-hmm.
But now that we get to negotiate, we're pushing it back up toward X, and we're getting X. Which is 20-25% higher than what we've been accepting for the last few years. So my better agents, they're like, this is the greatest thing ever. And they're going to get more buyers, because now buyers are actually asking the questions like, what can you do for me beyond just opening doors? Because that was some realtors' value propositions, like, I'm going to open the door and let you in. Like, if that's your sole value proposition as a realtor, like, bye-bye, you're gone.
Not going to make it.
Yeah.
As a buyer's agent,
Correct.
Buyer's agent, because my buddy just went through this process. He's buying a house in Santee. And I'm like, don't mess with the buyer's agent. Like, he had a couple friends, of course, right, that are like trying to get him to be the buyer's agent. I'm like, dude, with all of the movement in the space right now, go direct to the listing agent and talk to him.
Yeah.
And then make your offer. And through him, and he'll sign the dual agency thing and all that. And so what was interesting is we were hearing that the offers coming in are now like aggressive, the buyer's offers. So like the buyer's agent are now coming in aggressive on the fee negotiation, which is going to stir the pot on the offer list, on the spreadsheet you build for the seller. You're going to go, well, these guys suck. They're asking for like a majority of the pie.
Yeah.
Is that like, what is happening?
Yeah.
there?
Because now when you look at an offer, like before you would look at price, how much money down, what type of loan, is the buyer want any credits? That was it. Now you have this additional line of how much commission are they asking for you to pay. And so that's now part of the deal negotiation. And then it's funny because some sellers are like, well, I'm not offering anything. I'm like, if I paid you $10 million for your house, you're telling me you wouldn't pay me a commission? Well, if you paid me $10 million, okay. So you're willing to pay a commission. Like, let's just make sure we're clear. Mm-hmm. Every seller is willing to pay a commission at the right price. So let's just figure out what that price is. That's my job now as a buyer's agent, is what is that price I need to get you to where you're comfortable paying me my fee? And it's all negotiation. So even though somebody might submit an offer that's requesting lower commission than what I'm requesting, if I have the better offer, price, terms, everything else, and they perceive me as the better agent, better buyer, we can still win even though we're asking for more commission. So it's
maybe
just another line item.
So buyer is paying that fee.
So this is what's different is now when I meet with a buyer, they got to sign an agreement. I'm going to work with Whissel Realty Group and we're going to agree on that fee up front. Then I now find you a house and I write the offer on that house. And then I'm going to request that the seller pay my commission equal to whatever you and I agreed upon.
Got it.
Now there's this scenario in an ideal world, the seller agrees to that same commission percentage and you don't have to worry about anything. But there's a scenario where the seller says like, I don't care what you guys agreed to, like this is the number I'm offering. And so let's just say in that scenario that you and I agreed to 2.5% and the seller's like, I'm only paying 2%. Now you got to pay me that extra 0.5%.
And so it doesn't net additional cost to the seller. It's a net little bit of extra cost on the buyer side of the ledger.
Potentially. Yeah. And then you have some buyers who are saying, look, I want to make my offer more attractive. So I'm just going to pay you directly so that when we write our offer, we don't have to request the seller to pay.
Fee.
And they'll just pay me my whole fee, whatever we agree to make their offer stand out.
I feel like that's the move as a buyer's agent is to disclose it, come up with the deal up front, and then have that be like the listing agent gets his whole fee.
Yeah.
Because then
but the listing agent used to agree to a whole percentage and then split that, right? I'm going to keep this and I'm going to give whoever brings the buyer that. Yep. That doesn't happen. When they agree now, they're only agreeing in that listing agreement to how much the listing agent's getting paid. They're not pre-agreeing to anything to the buyer's agent. So that portion of the agreement's gone now. So it used to, the standard for a long time was like 6% and we'll split it 3 and 3. Yep. Like now you would just simply agree to 3 and then we'll negotiate whatever the buyer's agent's going to get when their offer comes in.
So as a listing agent,
it's easier now. It's way easier as a listing agent because I don't have to negotiate the buy side at that time.
Yeah, you were pre-negotiating the 6, but it was also a net.
And negotiating how much was going to go to the buyer's agent.
The fee was kind of big for the seller.
Yeah.
At 6%.
Yeah. So now when we meet, it's usually around half of what we used to negotiate. So far it's been a lot easier to get the listing signed, but now there's just a lot more work on the back end when the offer comes in.
And there's broker drama.
Yes. And again, the weak agents, the ones that got into this thing because they want to they watch Selling Sunset and they want to wear like cute outfits and, carry a dog in their purse. Like, good luck. Like when you come up against me, like it's not going to be pretty.
Have you watched Owning Manhattan?
I like Ryan.
Dude,
I like Ryan.
I watched it, like Shanae has it on the background and I'm like, wow, what's this? And then like halfway through, she had already watched some without me. And then I'm like watching it. I'm like, all right, I'm kind of hooked now. Cause what I like is like, it's all this drama. And then Ryan's always just like, he's a relatively straightforward guy.
Yeah. I like it because I feel like I'm in a similar boat. I mean, I have like 120 agents now, right? Like we might as well be running a brokerage, but although I'm not the broker, but I feel very similar where it's like, I'm managing the people, right? I'm actually not meeting with a lot of buyers and sellers anymore. Like it's rare. I'm actually doing a couple right now because I need to feel this new world. I need to actually like have the conversations. I need to feel the experience. So I'm working on a few deals right now, but traditionally my team handles everything. And you could see that on the show. Ryan's not the one meeting with the buyers and sellers. Yep. He's pairing the right agent on his team with the buyer or the seller.
I think it's cool. And then he's out getting like these bulk listings with those buildings, which I was like, this is, I could totally see
That's
how
way more fun.
It's fun, and then your team goes and sells it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I should say, did EXP come into this?
Yeah. So part of the allure of owning your own brokerage is that you could sell it someday.
Okay.
So it's always been like that there's this pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And so I got to this point where I started getting the M&A offers started coming in of these big brokerages that wanted to buy us, the little brokerage. And I was like, oh, it's happening. This is cool.
Yeah.
But when I went through the process, I realized that the brokerage I had built was worthless. So the way that they would value the brokerage is they would take the EBITDA, basically the net profit, just to make it easy. But then they would take whatever production I did, my sales, and take it out of the equation. Because they realize once they buy you, you're going to leave.
Your brand shifts a little bit.
Right. And you're going to leave after whatever your earnout is. So my company, which was very profitable when you included me, but once you excluded my production, there was virtually no profit. And a lot of companies run this way to where like the production of their team covers the expenses and then their production's the profit.
Oh, interesting.
Once you take my production out, you took the profit out. Therefore, the value was crap. Like it was nowhere near what I had hoped it was. And so I was like, screw this. Like, what's the point dealing with all the headaches, all the stress of being a broker if I can't sell this freaking thing? And so like I just made the decision, like I'm not going to be the broker anymore.
Okay, so that's where it shifted.
Where the decision.
Because you had gotten your broker's license.
And I did it for 12 years.
And ran that as a brokerage. Yeah. So then that's what shifted.
That's where the mindset shift happened. Because when you're the broker, you're responsible for every single agent, every stupid thing that they do. The
reporting kind of ends up becoming a nightmare, right?
It's just awful. Like what I've learned now, it's been 6 years since I've been at EXP, is like, when I was in the brokerage business, I was in the loss mitigation business. Like all I was trying to do is not lose money. Where now I don't deal with any of that. Like the broker deals with all of it. Now I'm in the income generation business because now I just technically run a team. So now anytime shit hits the fan, I just literally, there's a key on the keyboard, F. When you're in Gmail, if you hit F, that's forward. And I just forward all these lawsuits and all these complaints. Everything just goes to the broker.
Let them
and
deal with it.
I don't deal with that stuff anymore. So like I've eliminated so much stress and so much headache and I can just focus on generating income now. And I have way more freaking fun.
Yeah. And then that's where like marketing and the people and growing the team and having fun with kind of growing that. And, and exposing your brand and having fun with that.
So on the management side, we're kicking around getting our broker's license in that we don't really need it, but it's kind of like something that if we ever do have a massive lawsuit, it's like, it would be nice to have. What do you think on the management side? If you were
the argument that I've heard, I look at like wholesalers and a lot of flippers, they intentionally don't have their license. Because if you do have your license, you're upheld to a higher degree higher standard, probably the best way to say it.
Ignorance.
Yes, where you actually have more ignorance if you don't have it. Even agents on my team sometimes will be like, I'm going to go get my broker's license. I'm like, why? Why would you do that? I just feel like it'll make me stronger. I'm like, it's actually going to make you more liable. You actually have less plausible deniability because you're upheld to a higher standard versus when you're a salesperson versus a broker. Like there's no benefit to it. So unless you can see a direct benefit from having your license, I almost feel like, at least in the flipping world, investing world, and agent world, you're better off without it.
So if you did some type of asset management, you go into multi or something of that nature, and you're managing that portion with your crew, let's say, you'd probably hire a team.
Yeah.
You probably would just keep EXP in the mix, or how would that work? Could you do that?
So you're talking about like on our stuff when we dispose of it?
Yeah.
We're talking about that right now. We're deciding like, is that when I go out to pitch investors, is it seen as more beneficial that we're technically like vertically integrated and we're going to handle the sales as well? Or does it feel like a conflict of interest that I'm taking more fees to handle the disposition of properties and I am the person receiving them? Or should we be hiring a third party to represent?
To sell?
Yeah, to sell.
So, so you're talking about selling condos?
I guess maybe I might have misunderstood, but like I'm thinking about these apartment buildings, for example, that we're building. Like when we go to sell these, and so when we talk to an investor now to raise, and they're asking, okay, well, what's the disposition strategy? I'm actually really curious how investors will respond to that. If we say that we, EXP are going to list these, or we're going to hire the expert, right? That specializes in. I'm actually curious how that'll be received by investors.
I think if your fee's fair, and you're the best for the job. You know what I mean? Like, because there are specialists in multifamily sales and they're good at it. And you're selling to a complete different buyer group.
Right.
So like just in general, there's a different set of people coming in to buy a 10 unit or a 15 unit.
Yeah.
So to be fair, like if from an investor side, I think it's more about just open and transparency on the fee.
Yeah.
If you're reasonable and you're in the middle of range and it's
as long as you're not gouging. Yeah.
I think you could play the game there and be just fair and transparent. But then it's like, are you going to bring the best buyer?
Right. We're leaning toward, even though I sold apartments for 5 or 6 years and now we sold thousands of houses, we're actually leaning toward using third-party representation.
Yep.
One, just to eliminate that potential argument and to build a relationship with those agents so that they can on the front end bring more deals our way.
Mm-hmm.
So even though I have my license, like I will very likely am going to hire third-party representation
For the property management side.
And the disposition of these
disposition.
assets.
So I want to go back to the management.
Yeah.
So you're going to manage them, like, or who?
Management, my intention. So just to kind of like catch people up to speed, like we're building apartment buildings now. So there's this window of opportunity in San Diego. They're allowing infill development like they've never allowed before. They're not only are they allowing it, they're fast tracking it. Which has made development a lot more appealing, and we'll tie into cash flow too. So as we complete these buildings, they're obviously going to need management. Our first one's going to be done next month, but that's small 4 unit. So we'll probably handle that one ourselves.
Okay.
But ultimately we're building 30, 40, 50, 60 unit buildings. So we will need management. My intention there is to purchase a existing property management company.
Okay.
And we'll run that and then be vertically integrated on that side of it.
Do you think that needs a broker's license?
Property management, I don't even know if it does or not, to be honest with you.
You're supposed to.
In the state of California.
Yeah. So we're kind of getting, that's why I'm bringing this up.
Yeah.
In that if you don't own any, you can technically manage. You need a broker's license. Sorry, if you own some, you technically don't need it.
Because you can be
but if
like
you
a member
do not
managed.
own any of that asset, then you do need to be a broker.
Now, okay.
And so there's kind of this gray area that forms with all these partnership structures where it's like, well, I'm a fractional owner. Like, come on, doesn't that count? And I know all my buddies that have massive holdings don't have their broker's license, especially if you own in all these states. Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not feasible.
So then you kind of play the gray. It's less gray outside of California. California is now making it a little bit tricky on, I'd say, the most recent like set of like rulings in the industry, like it's like there's precedence shift.
Okay.
So we're kicking that around internally.
California always complicates things. Yeah.
We only have
but
one
we love
asset
to live
here.
here.
They do complicate it, but for those that are willing to cut through the red tape, there's a lot of opportunity there.
There is. I agree with
Because
you.
most people will say, screw it, it's way too hard. I'll go somewhere else where it's easier. So if you're willing to like go through the headaches, there's a lot of opportunity on the other side.
Yeah.
And to your point, we not in our realm, if we get our broker's license, we're not transactional.
Yeah.
It's literally just the management piece.
So on the management side, if you have to, I mean, you don't really have a choice. But I would just say for people, like if they have a choice, if they truly don't need it, I would not get it. I don't see a benefit of having a license unless you absolutely need it. So if it is a requirement for management, then it makes sense. But otherwise, you just have a lot more liability and you're going to get sued, right? Like whether you're doing, mobile home communities or multifamily or development, you're going to get sued. Like it's inevitable.
Yeah, it
at
is.
some point, right?
But an interesting kind of point, if you go and buy an existing property management company, the likelihood of them having a license to manage legally in the state is probably pretty likely. So then that would come with your deal and it would be all integrated, I would think.
And that's why I'd rather take over an existing company than start from scratch.
Yeah.
I
think
agree.
it's easier.
It's a tricky ordeal.
Well, there's such a messy middle too that you have to get through in property management where like when you're managing 10 doors, you're losing your face off.
Yes.
Where like you get to 100, 200 doors, now you're actually making money. So I'm fine paying at this point in my life. I would rather pay money up front to skip that messy middle and get to where we're actually profitable right out of the gate.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to recap this.
Well, we dodged.
Yeah. You guys had some internal conversations going and I was trying to keep up, but I like that he was like, wait, let me catch up the listener. So let me go back to the beginning just to recap this. So you started a brokerage, you had a bunch of real estate agents that worked with you. Then you joined the EXP team and let the brokerage go. Now you've branched off with some other partners and you've decided to develop multifamily. And you're raising money and having some fun over there.
Yeah, I'm learning how to raise money.
That's a whole nother thing.
That's literally my job now, really, the way I see it. Like I am a fundraiser.
Okay.
I'm
well,
learning
that's a big shift from a real estate agent perspective and doing that. So, okay, you mentioned, knowing what you know today, how would you do it different? So let's go into that now. How would you do it different or what would you do different? Knowing what you know today.
I think I extended my learning curve by going and being the broker day one. I think that was a huge mistake. The thing that I've learned in my life now is that if I want to get further ahead, I can get there a lot faster if I get myself around people who are at or above the level that I want to get to. So
who, not how.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
for example, like when we decided we want to get into this development space, it was like, okay, what are the rooms where all the developers are? There's this guy, Kent Clothier, right? He's a big time real estate guy, has a ton of developers in his group. It's called Boardroom. I was like, I need to get into Boardroom. So I can get in rooms with hundreds of other people who are doing development that have been doing it for 20 years. So I can learn from them. Now I need to fundraise. And so it's like, how do I get around high net worth people? Like, oh, I joined this group called Tiger 21. Every person in the room has a 20 million net worth or greater. Like, wow, I'm going to shortcut that fundraising learning curve. Like I got to sit in a room yesterday and just ask like, okay, here's my life story. You know, everything about me, the good, the bad, the ugly, you know what I've done in real estate, and I'm now a fundraiser. What should I do? And get to hear it from people who every person, there's 10 people in a room, all 20 million net worth, telling you like, here's what you should do. And here's when people bring me deals, here's what I like. Like that knowledge to sit in that room for that 2 hours yesterday, like, it doesn't matter what it costs to join that group. Like to hear it from the people that have the money, like
totally.
You mentioned the name of that and I was going to look it up. So that's cool.
So Tiger 21, to join minimum net worth, you have to have, it's more 20 million in investable assets. In order to be a member of Tiger 21.
Okay. Is that a nationwide kind of group?
Global, yeah.
Okay, global.
And it's probably global. Smaller. You know,
it's small, tight knit. Yeah. And so I'm by far the poorest person in the room, but
that's great.
I slid my way in there.
Yeah. You're playing up then.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah, which is great.
Would you share high level any deal points that were just stood out to you?
So like I did this thing, it's called your portfolio defense. So you tell your whole life story. It was like this, I think it was probably about a 20-page document. It took me 10 hours to complete this thing. Like it was probably the most intensive thing I've worked on outside of like college. Like it was a lot, but it asked so many like cool thought-provoking questions. For example, what's your personal investment statement? It's like, I've never actually thought about that. Like, what is that? Like I have like all my mission statements and stuff for like my business, but what about personally? Like most people don't have that. So it starts to make you like think about things like that.
You're like, ChatGPT, give me an example of a personal, and then you're like, oh, okay, I get that. Let me think about that more.
I'm sitting here forming words in my head about that. Yeah, but you have a belief system and you want certain things.
Like these are the asset classes I invest in. These are the returns that my minimum returns, and this is my risk tolerance. Like maybe I should have stuff like this. So just thought-provoking stuff like that. And then when I presented mine, then you get to kind of ask like 4 questions that you want the group to kind of help you with. So one was like, how do I be a better fundraiser? How do I not raise entitled children? Like that was another question. What are just like blind spots, like knowing what you now know about me? Like what are blind spots I should look out for? And then how can I get the rest of my family involved in finances, or should I? And the answers were actually really eye-opening. That one in particular, like you guys have met my wife before, and I've been like, it would be cool if Brittany was into this stuff too, where we could like be at dinner and talk about investments and finance. And they were all like, stop, just stop. Is because they were like, are there things that your wife is into that when she talks about, you just zone out? I'm like, yeah, she like, there's a full moon and she like grabs crystals and goes outside and channels the fucking energy of the moon. I'm like, I have zero interest in that. And they're like, exactly. She has zero interest in this. Quit trying to make her be interested in your financial stuff unless you want to be interested in full moon and crystals. Like, just stop. Right. And that was good. I needed to hear that because I'm like, they're like, why are you trying to force her to be interested in something she's not? Because you don't want her to force you to be interested in her stuff. So just little things like that, and some cool tips about like, we've worked hard to get where we are in life, and how do we not have our kids be entitled? And so there was some cool stuff there so it was really good. If you can qualify for that group, you should get in that group. It's a game changer. Just the way people think in that group too, which will kind of tie into like the show, the cash flow side. A lot of people in that group, like the first one, somebody presented in their portfolio. It was just eye-opening because they talked about like how much money they make and how much money their expenses are. And they were out of whack. It was like the amount of money they make versus their expenses. They had higher expenses than what they make. And the person was like, yeah, I don't care. Like normally in our head, I'm like, how do you pay your bills? I'm like, well, I have all these assets. Like I'm not worried about how I'm going to pay the bills. I don't need income from a job. I have enough money in the bank to pay, right? I have enough money in the bank to pay all my bills for the rest of my life. So it's like, people are like, I'm not worried about making an extra X dollars per year. I'm worried about building Y dollars in net worth. So it's a different mindset shift at that level, which is also part of what I'm paying for there is, and I'm realizing like the move I made with EXP, that's built me up so much freaking cash flow, like more than I've ever dreamed about. Like I literally had a number on my dream board of $1 million passive. And like I've blown past that exponentially being at EXP now. And so because I've built up that much cash flow, it now allows me to focus more on net worth. It allows me to go into development, which is something I've avoided because it takes years to do development. And with no money coming in, only money going out. Yeah. So it's like I've avoided development for a long time because I needed cash flow, where now it's like I can focus on building these buildings where our goal is to build 5,000 units, which puts a portfolio value of about $2 billion together. Like I could focus on that now because I don't have to stress about bringing in more cash because I've built these cash flow mechanisms that now allow me to go focus on net worth and doing bigger things.
That's amazing. Congrats on that. That's awesome. So these cash flow avenues, if you don't mind, like what are they for you?
Yeah. So there's obviously just natural income. So right, the real estate business that brings in cash. The EXP thing, one of the things that attracted me to that model with the brokerage was the fact that I've always had people that have been like, hey, if you ever start a Whissel in Orange County, let me know. I'd love to join you. If you ever start one here in Austin, let me know. Instantly, as soon as I joined EXP, people could now join my group, which we call fast forward. Kind of we talked about earlier, right? You can fast forward your ability to get where you want to go. Yeah. So we built an entire group inside of EXP on that same premise. Okay. Is if you want to build a big real estate business, plug into us who run multi-$100 million organizations, and we'll get you where you want to go faster. So between my business partner and I, we now have 14,000 agents around the globe that are plugged into Fast Forward. And we now share in all the revenue that those agents bring in. So there's a multi-level marketing component to it. Right. So as those agents sell homes, they bring revenue into EXP. EXP shares that revenue back with us.
Okay.
Just because we're on EXP, I'm curious, what was like the initial pitch and how big was EXP when you joined?
When we joined, it was 8,000 and now it's hovering around 90,000. So it's more than 10x since we joined 6 years ago. When I joined, the thing that was most attractive to me, number one, was get rid of the liability. I just didn't want that anymore. It wasn't worth it. And then they added 2 buckets of income to the table. One, this revenue share thing. And then 2, it's a publicly traded company and they give you stock in the company. Oh, wow. So just for doing your job, you earn stock. When you help the company grow, you earn stock. You sell more homes, you earn stock, and you can buy stock at a discount.
Okay. So there's another revenue source.
Getting rid of liability and adding 2 new income streams to the table. And then the cool part was there were other companies that tried to like give us money to join them. I got offered, 7 figures from Compass. And I was like, that's cool that I'm going to get all this money. But then it just, over time, I'm going to give all the money back and then some. And I'm going to screw my agents in the process because they have all these new fees and stuff at Compass. So I was like, that didn't make sense. What I liked at EXP is the opportunities I got. My agents got the exact same opportunities. And so there's agents on my team that are earning hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month in revenue share, in addition to their commission income.
I think it's the best multi-level marketing thing that's ever been put together.
I agree.
Because it's something that is actually on earned action from a meritocracy driven foundation, whereas like if you're just slinging like early days, I joined Monavie.
Yeah, I remember that. The magic juice.
The pyramid scheme.
I mean, they damn near said that stuff cured cancer. It was so ridiculous, the claims they made.
And it goes up and it goes right back down because nobody cares to have that stuff long term.
No.
And there was other ones before that, and the Amways of the world, but it's like it's trinkets, whereas real estate, the selling and the brokerage of residential real estate is it's very limited.
If there's no homes sold, there's no revenue. Therefore, there's no sharing. Where like Monavie, that was built off like you had to go get all your friends to subscribe and buy like 10 bottles a month minimum. And like that was how you made money. Where this, like, I don't make any money if somebody joins EXP. Like when they sell homes, I make money. So now we have this financial alignment, right? Like I'm incentivized to help them sell more homes. The more homes I help them sell, the more revenue they bring in the company, and the company shares it with me. So it's like that old Zig Ziglar quote, like you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. Like it's the true embodiment of that. The better job I do of helping people, then I help myself at the same time, which is beautiful. Like I was on a plane last week. I flew out to Arizona to pour into my partners there. I was on a thing yesterday with my partners in Philadelphia, like pouring into them. a bunch of our people are flying into San Diego next week. We're going to pour into them. So it's like,
that's a
the
win-win.
more I pour into them,
The more
they grow, I grow with them. And I love that.
That's
and
really cool.
Yeah. And the girl that I had met that knew you said this exact same thing. She's like, without his tools, I wouldn't be selling the amount of homes that I'm able to sell. So I'm making more money. And then, he's making money off of me, but without his help, I couldn't have done it. So it really is a win-win. Yeah.
Cool.
That's really cool. Well, how are they going to go commercial? I feel like
they have a commercial division too.
They need to take over.
Yeah. It's funny is I'm signing a commercial listing right here on Graves, like a 10 unit. And then technically I'll be back in commercial because we're going to sell all these buildings soon.
Right.
But I'm going to listing a 10 unit over on Graves.
Okay.
It'll be fun to get back into that.
That's cool.
Awesome.
I got some good contacts in San Diego for multi.
Yeah.
So we can trade names after, but it's a niche world. And I feel like there's a good moment. We were just talking
a lot of room for disruption in commercial.
There is. And there's one of my broker buddies that lives in Orlando. We were just talking about how there's a shuffling of the decks right now of like who's what name that has a meaningful production on commercial. They're all switching to different brokerages and taking different deals where the team gives them better support and all that.
Yep.
And I think that because brokerage is more volatile in certain regards, less transactional.
Yeah.
Like in a multi, you can't stack the level of transactions that you can in residential.
Yeah.
And to where if you were able to build a team all over the country selling multifamily or whatever, let's just pick multifamily as an example.
Yeah.
And then share in the pop and the stream of income with all the nationwide guys. It's a cool opportunity.
It is.
Because all the brokers that I know, they get stuck in the transactional trenches and then they have a hard time getting out. They build their lifestyle up to, let's just say, $2 million, gross commission that they're making.
Yeah.
Now they're spending that much money. They get used to that. They have a hard time shifting to passive.
Totally.
So I like the EXP model for that passive piece. I think it's really a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your perfect kind of asset portfolio, if you were going to investment strategy, if you will?
Yeah. So I feel like there's always so much pressure to like diversify.
Yeah.
I am not a fan of diversification.
I know we're super heavy real estate people. Like, there's nothing wrong with diversification, I guess, but
yeah, like I get it. And
yes,
there is nobody who knows residential real estate in San Diego County better than I do. Like, I'll just put that out there, right?
Well, you've been number one for a very long time. You've coached
in the last
hundreds,
10 years. We've sold like 4,000 freaking homes in San Diego alone. So it's like, I know more about San Diego residential real estate. I'll go up against anybody, right?
Yeah.
Like, so why should I go away from what I know better than anybody? Like, that is my gift, is I know it better than anybody. And I'm allowed to legally insider trade real estate, right? Like, I can sit down in a room like this with a seller, and the seller could say like, yeah, we're thinking about listing the home for $1 million. I do not have to go put that home on the market publicly. If I sit down and somebody says, I want to sell the home for $1 million, I could buy the home right there in the living room privately, and it's perfectly legal. Like in any other industry, that would probably be considered insider trading. But like I get to do that every day legally, right? And then I know the rules inside and out. I understand, cost segregations and depreciation, and I understand all these unique things that are happening right now in the city of San Diego with development that the public doesn't know about. So I know that I can, buy properties in these specific areas with this specific zoning, and I can put this many units, and like people don't know that. So it's like, to go away from the things that I know better than anybody, to go do things that I don't understand for shit, like precious metals, right? Like I don't understand gold and silver. Like, why am I going to go and like take my money out of this thing that I know better than anybody and go put it into something that I don't understand?
The risk is
crazy, right? Like, why would I do that?
Yeah. You're confident you're going to make money in the real estate market. You know where the returns are going to shake down. Precious metals are a good investment.
Yeah, like I get it. Not that it's a bad investment. It's just not mine. I don't know it. But there's people who know precious metals inside and out. More freaking power to them.
Well, so is that what you think? Like,
I'm heavy real estate. Like, so part of when Tiger is you do, when you do your portfolio defense, you do a quantitative thing that actually builds out your asset allocation. So I'm damn near 50-50 between the value of my companies and the value of my real estate. So my asset allocation is about 50-50 between the value, which would technically be considered private equity. So the private equity in my holdings of businesses and then 50% in real estate.
Okay. Is that what you would recommend to somebody, like somebody, or one of your real estate agents or EXP,
I think I just want to plant this.
Yeah.
The best investment is yourself.
Oh, of course.
And that's what you're
100%.
preaching is like,
Yeah.
and that's what we, I hear a lot of, like, we just, First Republic got acquired by JP Morgan. So now I'm a JP Morgan private bank client.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun with the guy that reached out. He's a cool guy.
You don't get the cookies anymore from First Republic. That was like the best part.
They were good, weren't they?
We moved to First Century now because we chased the team because they're really good at the business side. Yeah. But anyways, long story short, I'm listening to these like Wall Street guys now that are like retired. Now they're running like the private bank book for JP Morgan. The bottom line is, if we kept doing what we're doing, like, we're going to blow by a lot of these guys because we're niching down so deep. Yeah. And then what happens is you spawn off these little revenue sources, or you go a little turn to the right or left, like you're saying. I know into residential, I can buy this house and turn it into 12 units or whatever. And your ideas are spawning into a whole nother level, exponential growth. And like, that's what Sam Walton did. Mm-hmm. Sam Walton built Walmart and he just kept at it, never got distracted. Yeah. And I mean, now like the family still multi-generations later are still like top net worth in the world. Yep. So keep going.
It's just like you guys with mobile homes, right? Like you guys are up in the upper echelon of like understanding the mobile home space. Like, why go away from that, right? Like you're so good at it, it inside and out. Like, why would you go and stray away from that? I just think it's crazy.
And we've pondered that, here and there, where it's like, oh, maybe we get into maybe we get into a different side of commercial, but it's kind of like stay in your lane and really know it all the way through and understand the rules and the loopholes, if you will. And I think that when you know something like that, you can make better business decisions and better investments because you know it so well. Yeah. But an interesting, when somebody's not in the industry or, starting out as a fresh EXP real estate agent and wants to they're young and they're like, oh, I need to invest, but I also don't have a lot of money and want to grow with this. What would you tell somebody like that? As, I'd be curious to hear your answer.
So young agent getting in the business, start on a team. Like that's where I screwed myself, right? It was like coming in and being the broker day one. Like that was a huge mistake. Like I've said, if I moved, like we have a house in Nashville, like if I moved to Nashville, even today, knowing everything I know, I would still join the top team in Nashville tomorrow. Like if I moved, I would not start my own thing day one.
And if that person was trying to make an investment and they were like, I have $100,000, where should I put it?
If the person in Nashville
or the starting real estate agent who was,
if they're investing in their business,
they were investing, would you tell them to invest it in their business, or would you tell them to invest it in, REITs, or would you, what would you say? Like, hey, I want to invest
in them. I mean, Blake mentioned it earlier, invest in themselves more than anything before they go and do like outside investment.
Yeah.
What's
your question? Dollar amount, or I just got confused.
I just was like asking it from, if somebody was interested in investing, is the answer, or is your answer
are we talking?
Like $100,000? Use $100,000.
So is that their only 100?
Yeah, because they're young and they're starting.
If you got $100,000, like I feel like the $10,000 question now is 100 G's. Yeah. It's like if you got $100,000 and you're like looking to hit it big on some investment, you should go to Tony events. You should spend like 10, 20, 30 grand on yourself.
So when you're young and hungry, invest in yourself. I just thought that'd be kind of a fun point.
But they can be active, right? Like, so I think you invest in yourself and you understand the space and you kind of start out, you're like a radar, right? That's like bouncing around and you're kind of looking for where you get hits. And it's like, oh, you get a hit. And maybe it's like, you want to really go after this Airbnb game really hard. And like, you're passionate about that, like that's where you should go. Or like what we're doing with the ADU development, like maybe you're like, hey, I really like that. You go hard at that. Or maybe it's house hacking, or maybe it's sub two. So it's like invest in yourself and learn. I wouldn't just jump in and invest right away. I would invest in myself, and then I would start doing business and start seeing what's out there, and then figure out like where do you see the opportunity and what are you passionate about, and then go after that.
Follow that.
And in the beginning, you should be super active in whatever it is that you do. So you should be the one, like if it's Airbnb, like you should be the one that acquires it. You should find the furniture. You should manage the property. Like you should understand all of that before you hand that stuff off. I think people jump in and try to hand everything off right out of the gate, and they miss out on a lot of the opportunity to understand it. So when somebody's new and they have a lot more time, they should put more sweat equity into their investments. And over time, right? Like you guys, obviously, we talked earlier, a lot of your investors are older now that are the complete opposite. They have the check equity now. They don't have the time, or they don't want to use the time on being active. They want to be more passive.
Right.
So when you're young and you're hungry, like I think you should be active in these investments that you make, and you should understand them, and you should go through it. Like we talked about earlier, like right now I'm intentionally doing deals because I want to feel it. I want to experience it. I want to hear what the buyers are saying. I want to hear what the sellers are saying. I need to be active for a little while in order to be a good leader for my team.
Yeah, no, I agree
same
with
thing,
you.
like if you're going hard on Airbnb stuff, like you should run it. You should hear what the guests are saying. You should see what the questions are that are coming in from potential guests. You should, be reading the reviews. You should be figuring out how do you increase your ADR and decrease your vacancy. Like you should feel it. And then at some point, sure, you hand it off and be more passive.
Well, then you can lead better and coach better because you've been there, you understand
and you felt it, experienced it.
No, I just wanted to distinguish that point for the listener, because I thought that I agree with you. I think that everyone should invest in themselves, but
I think if you're going to look for like a more of an investment strategy kind of question, I call it the $10 million question. If you had 10 mil, where would you put it? Because that's different.
Right.
Because like if your buddy's asking you and they're making good money, and I actually have a friend, that's making decent money right now, but like you got some money in savings, but it's not like enough to live on if you invest it.
No,
so like
from a cash flow point, but wouldn't you recommend, to a certain degree, I would recommend that they start, because then the compounding, component of that would accrue faster. And they're not going to, maybe they're only going to get a couple $100 of cash flow.
Do you have a retirement account?
I personally do not have a retirement account.
So there you go.
I have fractional ownership interests of real estate.
I have like 401ks and stuff, and I'm like, why do I have this?
But I think to myself, maybe I should diversify. I know. Then it's like, move it to a self-direct.
But I can't because it's in my active business. If it's from an old business, But now it's
and then you're like, am I spending too much time on this damn thing? I get it. Our buddy yesterday was saying like it's important to use the exponential growth of interest, and I agree, but I think you got to go out and make some freaking money.
Well, it's just an interesting. It's interesting to hear, right? Everybody's got their opinion on it, and everyone at the end is trying to get to cash flow. So you would recommend investing in yourself and maybe not trying to utilize that compounding interest at a younger age. Just be hungry and get to your goal faster, make more money quicker, to then invest and diversify.
People try to get too far ahead. I mean, the amount of young people that join me too, and they're like, they want to be an influencer day one and stuff. I'm like, look, nobody gives a fuck who you are until you start selling some houses. Like, sell some houses first, put yourself on the map.
Amen.
And then they'll be more interested in what you have to say. But right now, you're the young kid who's never sold a home before.
Yeah, you got to do something.
Get some sales under your belt. Yeah. Get some experience under your belt. And now you can start sharing, hey, I was doing this deal and this happened. I was doing that and this happened. Like, then people will care about what you have to say.
Right.
So you just got to get experience. And same thing, like I said, the investments initially, I think everybody should be active. Like I used to manage my own rentals. I had crack shacks out in Lakeside. Like people were selling meth out of them. Like then we kicked them out and they moved into an RV and just parked in front of the building and kept selling meth. Like, just like brutal, man. But you got to go through that. Like I feel like I learned so much from that. So you should be active in whatever you invest in. I think when you're younger and you have the time, you can put the sweat equity in.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think there's an argument for a conservative bucket, a low risk, like just saving some money on the sidelines, to your point.
Yeah. I mean, just put it in T-bills right now that are paying 5%, or some of these CDs. There's a bank in North County right now doing like 9% on a short-term CD. Like that's a great place to put some money right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there's a diversification, but those are short term that you have to manage. And then, we all know that like when you do a bond or a CD or something like that, you get great cash flow, but you pay taxes and there's no appreciation and no depreciation benefits too. So it's a good way to diversify, but maybe not
cash equivalent, it's a liquidity deal where you get some income.
Right. Yeah. So it's a good pot to mix in, but you wouldn't want all your, beans in that pot.
It's a 10% kind of thing, 20%.
Yeah.
No, cool. Well, okay. So you're shifting now. So let's go to all roads lead to cash flow. Baby.
Yeah.
So you're shifting gears. You're going into multi, it seems like, and you want, and I've always said that like building and developing is more a higher net worth game because that's that down period of handful of years where you're scraping and you're going vertical and you have a little bit of volatility in the cost of things. The loans are typically a higher rate because of the construction loan kind of risk factor.
Yep.
And so preach that story. What are you up to? What are you thinking?
So the city of San Diego did a study a few years ago. They determined, and this is just the city, not the county. So city of San Diego is like 1.4 million people. They determined that we're 108,000 housing units short of where we need to be by the year 2029. And so they decided we need to get more homes built. And the only way we're going to do it is with infill development. And so they've started to pass more and more things to encourage infill development. The problem is we're now 3 years in. So between 21 and 29, we need to build 108,000 units. We're 3 years in and we built like 20,000 units so far. So now we have to build 88,000 units in like a 6-year period. So the more far behind they get, the more they're fast tracking development. So there's certain parts of town now where you can skip the entire entitlement process, which is when you say like, I'm going to take this house and I'm going to turn it into an apartment building. That process alone outside of the coastal overlay zone is normally like a 1 to 2 year process. Yeah. Now instant.
Well, that's amazing.
That, right. Yeah. So you're eliminating like 1 to 2 years. Then you have to still plan out what you're going to build. That time period hasn't changed, but the permitting time period has changed where that was typically running like a year to 18 months. Now you're like 6 to 12 months and they're claiming they're doing it faster. We'll see. Yeah. We have a bunch of them going into permitting right now. So we'll see how fast they turn them around. But something that was like 12 to 18 months is now 6 to 12 months. So you shaved off, 6 to 12 months there. And then the build side, there's, supply chain and stuff is getting back under control. So depending on the size of the project, we have a small one that we're finishing that was like a 6-month build. The bigger ones will be like 12-month, or when we get to really big stuff, it'll be longer. But now we're compressing what used to be like 5 to 6 years into like 2 to 3 years. So it's a very attractive thing. And so just to like tie back to the beginning where we talked about the condo conversion, like that was a window of opportunity that I wish I would have taken advantage of. I was just young and didn't know. Like, I feel like this is that same opportunity and it's only going to be here for a period of time until they hit their goal. And then I think all these things they're doing that are pro-development are going to shut down because San Diego is a democratically led city. It's not common for Democrats to be pro-development. Like, that's just not by nature.
Right.
But what they're doing to make it good politically is that a certain percentage of the units we build have to be affordable.
But also we need more units.
We need
general.
the units.
So I feel like there's the whole affordable play, especially if you're doing smaller units, like just normal size units where it's not like these big luxury things.
And that's the gap we're trying to fill is kind of, there's right now in San Diego, you're either renting stuff that was built in like the 70s that's trash, or you're getting this new product where you have like a massage parlor in your apartment complex. Like, and there's like no in between, right?
So we need more of a middle ground.
You either are getting stuff that's a reasonable price, but it's old as shit. Yeah. Or you're getting this new product that's an exorbitant price. We want to kind of come fill a middle ground there where we can have this new product, but be at a much more affordable rate. So we're not, you know, all
call
the
it the
frills
new
and
class
stuff.
B.
Yeah.
Like new age class B, where it's because class A is like this luxury branding now. Well, and so class B doesn't mean it's old.
Right.
You know, it's just that it's
just not amenitized.
Exactly. I was just going to say your amenity package is probably just less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, do you even have amenity packages?
More cost. You don't want
you place to park your bike. That's our amenity. Like, these are no frills. But again, you're going to be able to rent these at an affordable rate.
Yeah.
And you're going to get a brand new place.
We have a 40 unit, a mobile home park with a pool.
Yeah.
And I've been wanting to fill that pool in forever.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, but like the cost of that pool on that 40 unit is ridiculous percentage wise.
It is. It's
to where I'm like, gosh, like I like, that's why I like scale now, 100 units plus. But like with these small deals, don't do it. Yeah. Don't do any frilly things.
No frills. These are just simple kind of, some of them are student housing. Some of them are like what we call workforce housing, just for, people that are just out working, just need a place to crash. They don't need anything fancy.
Yeah. It's still very nice.
Yeah. And we're not just building like cheap boxes like some of the people are doing. Like ours will have some level of architectural significance. So there'll be a building that you're proud to come home to, not just a box. Because we don't need to be the cheapest, like crappiest building. We want something that you're proud of when you pull up to it.
Yeah, and it's kind of has an aesthetic value.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
There's some cool. Have you heard of Jonathan Siegel?
Oh yeah, he's a famous loft guy.
Yeah. They look cool.
Yeah,
and they get a pretty good money, and it's always like 20 units with like cool restaurants down below. Yeah. Who do you use for design and stuff? Or
right now we're working with multiple architects as this is new to us. So same thing. We talk about the radar. We're trying multiple architects to figure out like who's our vibe, who's the right fit for what we're doing. So right now we have 10 projects in the works, and we're working with 3 different architects on those. And it's becoming clear very quickly, like who's our person moving forward.
Just for speed.
And just understanding the goals, the design, balancing unit count with cost and everything. So these guys just get it. So it's become super clear through these first 3 projects. I think we started with 3, but there's 10 in the pipeline now. So most all of them are going now to the one particular company.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what's the goal then with this development?
5,000 units.
5,000 units. And is it to own them and keep them? Or are you going to sell them? Some will be build to sell,
some will be build to rent. Because we understand different investors, right? And as we raise funds for these projects, different investors has different goals. Some people want to throw in $1 million and get $1.5 million out a few years later.
Sure.
And some people want more cash flow. They just want to park their money and just have passive cash flow coming in. So it'll just be a mix. We'll have a variety of different offerings for different investors.
Okay.
So when you say 5,000 units, 5,000 units built?
5,000 units built, yeah, which should be somewhere around 150 buildings. And then our goal is every building that we build and sell, we will build a house in Baja. So we're partnered up with Baja Bound. So ideally we build 150 buildings, we build 150 houses in Baja. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And so then you have a mix of some, profits with sales and then some cash flow. Yeah. And so that achieves that cash flow goal then.
And honestly, right now, because I have the EXP cash flow, these buildings, I'm less concerned about cash flow. I'm more concerned about net worth with this.
And you're
just
having fun now.
And this is fun. It's a new challenge. Yeah.
And growing your interest in these types of assets.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm far less concerned about the cash flow in this particular world, right? Because the EXP is my cash flow. Like that brings me more than enough cash flow.
Right. So, but you want to own pieces of all these buildings, which will in the end spin off cash flow or gain.
Yes.
But you'll own significant holdings.
By the time this is all done, we build 5,000 units. We'll own thousands of units when this thing is all done. You'll have
whatever the split is.
Well, and then it'll also bring depreciation and other benefits to offset some of your taxable income as well. Yep. So and
obviously depreciation, when you're building buildings, you're depreciating the whole freaking building, right? And there's the opportunity too to do some interim depreciation on the existing building and then future depreciation when you construct. Yeah.
Kind of ladder it.
Yeah. Do a new
second round
study after it's done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I think it's noteworthy that the target, kind of how many buildings, so I think that's good for everyone to learn, like paint the target and then back into what it actually means.
You gotta have a North Star. You gotta know where you're going.
And then like, that's what we're trying to get to. We're at a couple thousand units, call it, but we want to get to 25,000. And so, and that's a long-term project, obviously. But then it's like, okay, well, we need to go into like 5 or 6 meaningful cities because we can't get the scale in just one market. Yep. And so like now we're building our database out, the same thing. Yeah. So where I feel like all the big dogs, have set a North Star, but then you back into it and make it a bite size.
Yep. Right. Right. Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
Well,
I think that was
I feel like that's
really good
decent
insight.
cutoff.
Yeah.
I feel like you have a time cutoff too.
I probably do. Yeah.
Yeah. We've been going about an hour.
Well, hey,
now,
thank you so much for the time today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun hanging out.
I had a lot of fun with your energy, your expertise, your story. I get a kick out of it. So congrats on the success and
thank you. Likewise.
Yeah. It was great to have you here today.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.